Hello and welcome to the Hit Hard News. I am your host, Ben Blackwell, and I am joined today by Sam O'Reilly. How are you, Sam?
I'm very good, mate. Yourself?
I'm not too bad. Being enjoying the nice weather up here, which makes a change. So I cannot really complain from my side of things. Let's start off with what everyone wants to hear about, and that is boxing. So the first topic I want to bring up with, which has been doing the rounds on the social media circles, lots of people talking about it. Eddie Hearn seemed to be losing his rag, with people even commenting on it. That is the Kell Brook and Jesse Vargas supposed unification fight. So what the hell is exactly going on? So first of all, Sam, I'll ask, do you know what's going on?
I don't think anyone does, mate. I mean, I watched the interview with Eddie from the presser yesterday in Leeds, and obviously he sort of went into as much detail as he possibly can regarding what's going on. There's a lot of rigmarole to get through to make a fight of this magnitude. I think, for a big unification fight, it's got to be right for everyone. That Matchroom, Top Rank, Jesse himself, Kell. There's a lot of people that have to be happy with the deal, and this is a fight that's. I was convinced it was going to be announced beginning of June, and obviously it's rumbled on and rumbled on. They're still saying that they're close to getting it done. You never know with these things. People get greedy, people change their mind, other opportunities arise in the meantime during the negotiations. So it's really difficult to know who wants to fight and if this is all a smoke screen or if you never know. You never know. Personally, I think Kell Brook wants to fight because he struggles to get big fights, and he's at the stage now he needs to get a big fight on a big name on his record to really be believed as the number one welterweight, I believe. So it's difficult. It's a difficult situation for everyone involved. I think Eddie can only do so much. There's a lot goes on the other side with Top Rank and stuff. So yeah, it's about time it got announced. Hopefully it is announced pretty soon, but it's definitely a fight that I think most people in the boxing, boxing fans and most people in and around boxing want to see.
I'm in absolute agreement. Like, fights of these magnitudes, as you said, there is a lot of drama behind the scenes. I don't want to sound like I'm quoting Eddie Hearn religiously, but in fights like this, in the build-up and the negotiations, it is like a pantomime. You've got Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum playing their parts. Eddie Hearn obviously wants to look after Kell, make sure he gets a good, well-deserved person for a fight of this magnitude, and Bob Arum is only doing the same for Jesse Vargas as well. And with some of the figures which I've seen being bandied about in terms of Jesse Vargas's split of the purse, I've heard somewhere that he's getting paid between $2 million minimum guaranteed. That is from Hearn, and I've seen a couple of commentators in the US say he's getting paid as high as $3.5 million. So if you think about it, it is madness to think that Jesse Vargas' highest purse to date is $625,000, which he got to face Bradley, I believe.
In a fight in which he lost.
And in my opinion, he didn't do himself justice in a fight of that magnitude. He didn't really come alive to the 11th, 12th round. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. He didn't. It was his first big, it was definitely his biggest name to date. And yeah, he didn't do himself justice. He's still relatively young, but I just find it crazy the amount of money they're talking about throwing at him to make this fight.
Yeah.
I just think I think it comes back to Kel. I really do. How desperate Kel is to get a big fight, that they're sort of willing to throw big money at guys with a name. Kel is going to struggle for the fact he's a bit of a risk for a lot of welterweights out there, but he doesn't. What does his name really carry? This is the problem I have with Kel. He's a world champion, yes, but who's he beat? Kevin Bizier and Jojo Dammer's last defences, so they're not setting anyone on fire at the minute themselves. So it's difficult. It's a difficult situation for everyone involved. Now, to get the big fights made, I think Eddie Hearn is going to have to throw some money at, and ridiculous amounts of money at people like Jesse Vargas.
Do you think then that Eddie Hearn, as he said, is unwilling to bend his principles on good business? Do you think that it's going to get to that stage soon to keep his fighter happy in Kell Brook, to spend the money to get fighters such as Jesse Vargas or the Chucky? It's getting to that. It like reminds me when Joe Calzaghe back in the late 90s, early to mid 2000s struggled to get a fight under Frank Warren with a name of any such magnitude.
Yeah.
So it's me personally, I'm a big Kell Brook fan. He's a fellow Yorkshireman like myself, and I just want to see Kell Brook in a fight of, especially on British soil for me, to get a fight of such big magnitude, because it'll be good not just for British boxing but for Yorkshire boxing, but that is from a selfish personal point of view. So
yeah, of course, we all have those personal areas. I mean, if I'm honest, down here where I am in London, and a lot of the guys haven't connected with Kell Brook as much, and I don't know. I think he struggles. Not only is he's a dangerous puncher and he's a really good fighter, but he's not a talker. No, you couldn't put your hand on your heart and say Kell Brook has got the personality that Ricky Hatton and people that talk, and the people that make you excited and make you want to watch them, whether it's to get knocked out or to knock somebody out. A lot of people are disliked for as much as liked for talking a lot, and Kell Brook doesn't seem to fall into that category. He doesn't do a lot of talking. Recently, he has done regarding Amir Khan, and now Jesse Vargas and himself are going back and forth on Twitter, and I think he's realizing he's having to go that route to get a bit more interest, a little bit more interest, because we've got a world champion here in one of the most dangerous divisions, and he's not getting the big fights for whatever reason. So I think he's realized he has to do something slightly different.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think that with Jesse Vargas' personality, he comes across, especially on social media, that he's not afraid to say what he really, really thinks. Maybe it's a sense of pride that he's got to, in a way, stand up for himself and not be talked down by, I suppose, young pretender in some of the various tweets which I've seen. So maybe this situation is actually bringing the best out of him, especially on the social media platform, because he must be getting frustrated and annoyed, especially with all the Twitter stuff and the Facebook stuff, calling Kell Brook just another pussy, another bum, someone who don't want to challenge himself against the best. And it's getting if I am getting frustrated as just purely a boxing fan, imagine what Kell Brook must be thinking.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So let's say hypothetically this fight falls through, it doesn't get made. What is a realistic alternative, do you think?
Well, I know he wants Thurman. I've seen Hearn say he wants Thurman. Now, how long do you wait? This is another question, because there's talks. They wanted Garcia apparently, and Garcia flat out said no. Timothy Bradley, he got beat again by Pacquiao, but there's talk he won't fight it now till the late in the year, and Kell Brook needs to stay active. So I really hope it doesn't become a situation where he's waiting around for the big fights. They end up passing him by, and he ends up having mandatories or even voluntaries, such as he did with Frankie Gavin, that fail. And these are still failing to capture the imagination of the certainly the majority of the boxing public, I'd say, like yourself, there's a lot of big Kell Brook fans. I'm not saying I'm not a Kell Brook fan. I just worry that he's going to find it hard to cement a legacy and a big reputation if he doesn't get these big fights. It's a bit of a catch-22 for him because he wants the big fights. There's no doubt he wants them, and for whatever reason, they're not happening at the moment, and it's a difficult situation for him. So I don't know. I don't know where he goes.
And also in terms of sense of waiting and hanging about for time for these big fights to happen, how long realistically do you think that Kell Brook can actually wait around it? Welterweight, because he's absolutely huge for a welterweight, not just in terms of his height, but his body mass and his width. He's an absolute specimen in my eyes. So
yeah, I mean the height. He's only sort of 5'9", but yeah, he's thick, isn't he? He's wide and he's built, you know. So
yeah,
does he want to take a step up? It's a big division, 154. You know, I don't know. He hasn't cleared out. I know he wants all the belts. I'm pretty sure he'll stick around. He wants all the belts, and one way or another, I'm pretty sure he'll get the fights. It's just a lot of jumping through hoops, probably more from Eddie Hearn and his promoter to get these big fights made on his behalf. But Eddie Hearn, you know, he tends to get the big fights. He tends to get them. So let's hope he can get another one for Kell Brook.
It is just like, as you say, it's just a waiting game now. And mainly from Eddie Hearn's side to jump through the hoops and do the deals and just do what needs to be done right by his fighter more than anything. So now that situation is talked about, we had a press conference yesterday at the Aspire building in Leeds, which is not too far away from where I live. So main event, obviously, it's the Leeds Warrior, Josh Warrington, versus, oh my God, what's his name now?
Paddy Highland. Paddy Highland.
That's it. That's the one. So, yeah, that is, in my opinion, this is Josh Warrington's definitely his toughest fight today. Highland is only lost against world elite opposition in world title contests. Is not afraid to let his hands go, come forward fighter at times, but he knows how to box as well. Is really, in my opinion, a good top contender and will bring a lot of problems to Josh Warrington, who again, not a big puncher. Solid boxing ability, but there is some flaws there which can be exploited, in my opinion. When he throws his punches, his guard tends to drop. So how do you see this fight going yourself?
You know, Josh Warrington, again, there's big talk of Selby. I know Selby was really on his radar, and for whatever reason, the timings hasn't worked out for that fight. So he's looking to fight the very best, you know. For someone who he's 23-0, Josh Warrington. He only has, I think, 4 stoppages on that record. So he ain't a big puncher, you know. He's not a guy that's going to go in there and he's going to blow you away. What he does have is very good durability, very good stamina, and he's technically a very good boxer. Patrick Highland, I think he's coming off a loss to Gary Russell. Gary Russell Jr.
A very bad loss as well. He got knocked out in 3 rounds.
Yeah, he got knocked out, and you never know how a fighter is going to come back after a knockout like that. It's hard to know because we've seen people's punch durability and punch resistance go after a brutal knockout. So it's a hard one to call, as in it's a tough opponent. But if I'm honest, I don't look past Josh Warrington for this fight. I think he's going to wear him down, and I think he'll win the majority of the rounds. I think he'll probably a unanimous decision, and just on pure boxing ability, I believe he'll get the job done. But it won't be easy, you know, because Highland comes to fight. He's not someone who's going to, he's not going to stand off Warrington. He's not going to make it easy for Warrington to pick his shots and do as he pleases, like a lot of his other opponents have done. He is going to be there for a fight, and Warrington needs to be ready for it. I don't think Warrington will I don't think he'll underestimate Highland. If he does, he'll be in for a shock. But he's a professional, and because he knows he hasn't got that knockout power, I believe he's probably come to terms with that fact. He doesn't go in there and blow people away, so he's more likely to come in and be smart and box intelligent for the 12 rounds. That's the way I see it going.
I see it going pretty much the exact same, where Josh Warrington, as you say, goes in there, will eventually break down Patrick Highland, mainly with the body shots, in my opinion, because Josh Warrington, in my opinion, is a very, very underrated body puncher, as in terms of forcing his opponent back on the ropes and taking advantage of the body area left, because like Patrick Highland tends to, when he's on the ropes, has his hands up, not really guarding the body. I know that is much easier said than done, and in hindsight, that could be something which a fighter could learn to deal with, but it's just a natural reaction. So I think Josh Warrington will need to control the pace and judge it, and not let Patrick dictate too much in terms of the pace. Just like I'm only saying that because Patrick has in my opinion, quite a good ring IQ. He's been there, seen it, and done it at the top level. May not have always been victorious or been badly knocked out, but he is more than capable. He's one of the dark horses in the division, as I've earlier said. So it's going to be extremely intriguing. It's going to be an extremely intriguing fight, and Josh Warrington's going to have that huge Leeds Arena backing, singing marching on together. And by all accounts, Patrick is bringing a few 100 to 1,000 Irish fans, so it's going to be a good atmosphere either way, because Leeds Arena, since Eddie Hearn's brought back boxing to the city of Leeds, it's really, really flourished. And I've noticed that firsthand, being a Leeds resident, there's a huge buzz about boxing again in Leeds.
Do you know, I've never been to Leeds, and this is when this card was announced, I made a point of getting my tickets booked early, so I'm actually going to be ringside for this one. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
I might have to see you there. It's my birthday there as well on the 30th, and I'm hopefully wanting to attend the fight myself, depending of what my family decides to do for me. God love them. So then going down the card, we've got Luke Campbell versus Mendes. That's a fight for the WBC silver lightweight title, I believe.
Yeah.
So again, very, very tricky opponent for Luke. Mendes, a former world champion at super featherweight. He can certainly hit. Is a well-schooled, tricky customer. More recently well known for having 2 bouts with Francis Barthélemy. One of them, the first bout ended controversially, which was later ruled a no contest due to Francis Barthélemy knocking out Mendes a second after the bell in the second round, I believe. So very, very tough character, good boxer, and he can hit. So what's your opinions on this fight? Is this really a sink or swim moment for Luke Campbell to see whether he can push on at the world level, the elite level?
Argenis Mendes has been around. He's an experienced guy. He's also coming off a loss, same as Highland is. So it's not the worst time for Luke Campbell to be making this step. I say make step up. It is a step up. We know, it's the titles don't always mean anything. Yeah, it is for the vacant WBC silver lightweight title, but it doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to get a great opponent or a great standard of fight. This is one that I believe Luke Campbell. When he fought in December and he lost against Mendy, it was a big setback. But in many ways it wasn't. Obviously it's a blemish on his record at an early stage that he definitely didn't want. But I think it may have made him refocus. He came from the Olympics and he then turned pro, and it was sort of all going his own way in a sense. So I don't necessarily think the loss was a bad thing. You know, he beat Tommy Coyle before that, and he's beat Gary Sykes since that. I think that was merely a bump in the road. I think Luke Campbell is a very good quality operator. I really do. I think he'll dispose. I think maybe a late victory. You know, I think he could possibly get Mendes out of there late on, or if he's smart, he can box in and stay behind the jab. He's quick. We know his hand speed. He's got great hand speed. So I think Luke Campbell gets the job done in what will be a difficult fight, because the experience of someone like Mendes, you know, he's fought everywhere, all over the world against a lot of good opposition. So he needs to be on his game, Campbell. But if he's as focused as he looks to be since getting defeated, I think he'll get the job done.
Do you think Jorge Rubio is do you think that Jorge Rubio is the right choice in new trainer? Because I know that Luke Campbell was very loyal to his former amateur trainer, I believe, who coached him for the first, God knows how long of his pro career. I should really know, but I'm not good with numbers and dates. But Rubio, but do you think Rubio could be the perfect fit for Campbell? He's a very well-known trainer with training southpaws. He's got arguably one of the top 5 pound for pound fighters in his stable in Rigondo. So do you think that Rubio could finally bring out that potential which Luke Campbell had when he first turned pro?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible. Like I said, I didn't see a hell of a lot wrong with what Luke Campbell was doing. You know, he got defeated and he wasn't at his best on that night in December, but he's decided, and he's took it. It's his career at the end of the day, and he's made the decision that making a change is what's best for him. So it's hard to argue one way or the other. I've had the conversation regarding people changing trainers. You know, someone like George Groves, for example, he went from Booth to Paddy, and then now he's with Shane McGuigan. But he felt it was best for him, and you only get one career, you know. So I find it difficult to put. You can usually see if they're different under certain trainers, and if certain trainers have a method that, you know, is well known, and if they start implementing that. But when a fighter chooses himself to go to a certain trainer, there has to be a reason for it. So he feels confident in the change, and if he's confident, that's the main thing. You know, you don't want to be going into a fight not trusting your corner. That's happened before. George Groves didn't trust Paddy Fitzpatrick, went in against Badu Jack. Whether it was him or his trainer, you know, he has to take the responsibility in my eyes, because he's the fighter. So if he wasn't confident in the first place and happy in his camp, he shouldn't be training there. So if Luke is happy, that's the main thing.
Well, again, I totally agree with you. I've had that problem myself when I was an amateur, and I'm not comparing myself into Luke Campbell in any way whatsoever, but I know exactly where you're coming from in the terms of, if you don't trust your corner, make a move. It's just plain common sense. Like, as you said, you only get one career, and I just hope personally that Luke Campbell can go on and just achieve that undoubted potential which he showed at 2012 and for the most parts of his pro career. So, also on the card on the Leeds bill, we've got arguably, in my opinion, one of the fights of the night in Tyrone Nurse and Tommy Coyle for the British light welterweight title. That is really going to be, in my opinion, a clash of styles, because I know Tyrone Nurse is more well known for being a boxer and boxing on the back foot, but in his fight against Willie Limond, he used his size advantage to great effect. He's huge for the weight, and he's really started to put his authority down on fights, in my opinion, where he's coming forward, punching, not being afraid to throw with fighters, just really using his physical capabilities more than anything. And we all know what Tommy Corley's fights like. It's like Ron Seal. It says exactly what it says on the tin. Come forward, dictates the pace, and he'll try and outbang you. I don't know whether if that makes sense, but he's a very, very come forward fighter. So it could be one of those fights where it's going to be an absolute stink fest on a viewing spectacle where Tyrone Nurse boxes on the back foot, boxes smart, tries not to get involved too much, or if Tyrone Nurse performs like he has been doing to form, especially against Willie Limond, it could be a bit of a banger. So what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good fight. I mean, it's an all Yorkshire fight, isn't it, for the British title? So you think how much has captured the imagination up there and the atmosphere up there, and it's going to be brilliant. I just really hope the fight delivers. I mean, Tyrone Nurse, in his last fight against Willie Limond, I think that was on the Ricky Burns card.
Correct.
He looked good. He looked good, and he looked more spiteful. He looked more vicious than he has been. For someone who's, I think he's 26, 27 maybe, 26, 27.
27.
27. Now, he's had 35, 36 fights, and he hasn't really been famed for knocking people over. That's not what he's been good at. But he's very tall, as you say, for the weight, is a lot of him. Now, he's beat some good people, Tyler Good, John, and he's been in some good fights, but I just think now he seems to have turned a corner where there's a little bit more viciousness in his game, and he's looking to knock people out more, whether it's more confident in taking a shot so he doesn't mind risking it a little bit more. I don't know, but he looks, I like the look of Tyrone Nurse, I really do. And as you say, Tommy Coyle, he's going to come forward. He got stopped by Luke Campbell. Now, Luke Campbell, I think that was his 12th fight or maybe 11th fight at the time, something like that. So he really, I think there's levels, and I believe Luke Campbell's better than him, and that sort of showed in that fight. And since then, he came back. He got a points win in Manchester. And now he's got this fight against Tyrone Nurse. Me personally, I like Tyrone Nurse a lot. I think Tyrone Nurse wins the fight, and I think he could do it in a number of ways. Whether he chooses to box at range and uses the height advantage and reach he's got, or whether he wants to be more vicious and just come forward and walk straight through to Tommy Coyle. I think he's good enough to do that. I really do like Tyrone Nurse, but Coyle's not going to be an easy night's work for anyone. So we know he's got a better knockout percentage than Tyrone Nurse. I think he's knocked 10 of his opponents out, whereas Nurse only knocked out 6 or 7. So he can bang. He can bang. And if you get lazy and you drop your gloves and you walk in straight lines with no head movement, you're going to get hurt and you're going to get found out by someone like Tommy Coyle. So much like the Warrington and the Campbell fights, I fancy Nurse by boxing IQ, if you know what I mean. Just being smart, just using his range, using the ring, and using a better technical ability, in my opinion.
I think personally, I agree with you that Tyrone Nurse should, I don't want to say cagey, but be smart for the vast majority of the rounds, say about up until round 9, round 10, because Tommy Coyle to me does seem to tire the longer you drag him into a fight. It was clearly evident in the Luke Campbell fight, where Luke again frustrated him by forcing Tommy Coyle to hit gloves, hit arms, or simply hit fresh air. And I think personally Tyrone Nurse could stop him late on. That is my pick, and especially in this area, that Tyrone Nurse is, again, he's been big around the Yorkshire amateur scene and in the local boxing scene, to myself anyway, that he's starting to realise his potential. Is, again, as he said, he's finally turned that corner. The spark has finally lit up in Tyrone Nurse's head, and I do believe that Tyrone Nurse could win the British title outright and possibly push on to European honours at least. He's a very, very underrated fighter that people just see him from his past appearances on Sky TV, where he's just box smart, and he's even been labelled boring. I don't find Tyrone Nurse boring to watch, but a lot of people do find him boring to watch. So I just hope that Tyrone Nurse kicks on with his career and keep what he's doing. Even if he loses, he's still got a lot to offer because, like, again, he is a big lump for the weight. He could easily move up to welterweight and challenge domestically on the British welterweight scene. He could have fights against Frankie Gavin or Sam Eggington. So he's a very, very intriguing fighter, Tyrone Nurse, and a lot who doesn't get the credit which he really deserves. Like, if we are both picking Tommy Coyle to lose, what do you realistically see for Tommy Coyle if he was to lose this fight?
That's difficult. Do you know what? I see Tommy Coyle. It sounds weird because it's for the British title, but I see this as his level. I see him as a British champion level fighter. I think Tyrone Nurse now will be slightly above that, as you just pointed out. I agree with you. I think he's slightly above British. We don't know what potential he might have, fighting better opposition, Nurse, if he goes up to European or Commonwealth. But I think Tommy Martin it's just, if he fights someone, Tommy Coyle, if he fights someone at the British level, and he can be a bit of not a measuring stick, because that's probably a bit insulting to him, because he's better than a measuring stick. But for someone like Luke Campbell, who's on the way up to defeat him, I don't see much further than British level for Tommy Coyle, if I'm honest with you.
Okay. So again on the card, we have the return of Ryan Burnett.
Yeah.
Again, I love watching Ryan Burnett box. I'm for like such a young man, he is highly talented. Has his opponent been named yet?
I don't believe it has.
I don't believe it has. So we cannot comment about his fight because he's got no opponent named. Yeah. But like in general, what are your opinions on Ryan?
Listen, he's exciting, and he's a young man. He's with Booth now as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to go from strength to strength. He's exciting. He's in a division that's wide open at the minute, bantamweight. He's done. Frampton's gone up. So there's whether I don't know how much you rush him. Do you rush Ryan Burnett through? He's a guy that's making moves, and he's with a very good trainer now.
Yeah.
So who's the champs? He's got Jamie McDonnell and Lee Haskins, Stuart Hall, Butler. He's in a division where there's big fights there with British guys. That if he's impressive enough, he could work his way to those fights. He could do. In the short term, I just want to see him improve. He's a young man. Get out there, get a bit of a reputation, start knocking people over as he has been doing, and people will know more about him. And then the big fights will materialise. They will do.
Yeah, I know this is a bit of a brave call, but I believe Ryan Burnett right now could be either of Stuart Hall and Lee Haskins, in my opinion. I think personally he's fat good, because Stuart Hall is an aging fighter. That is no disrespect to him. I'm only stating the facts. Very, very basic, but he's tough. But he is tough as they come. Lee Haskins, again, is not exactly a spring chicken, but he's a fresh fighter. He hasn't been involved in too many wars or battles, and would be a good test for Ryan Burnett, in my opinion. Who's again a very, very skillful boxer, very, very underrated. Not necessarily a big puncher, but it would be a tough fight for both of them. I will say that about a possible matchup between Ryan Burnett and Lee Haskins. And Jamie McDonnell, I don't see that fight realistically happening at some point with Ryan Burnett or Jamie McDonnell, unless it's at super bantamweight.
He's likely to step up McDonnell for the big fights. Get Quigg possibly. He wants to fight Quigg. I think he wants to be in big fights himself, McDonnell. So I agree. He probably won't be around at bantamweight for long enough to Burnett to get a title shot.
And Paul Butler has won a world title at bantamweight before against Stuart Hall in 2014, but more well known for being a super flyweight, and he's not particularly a big bantamweight, and plus also with possible promotional difficulties between Matchroom and Frank Warren and Queensbury, that fight will be hard to make unless it's a mandatory for some belt of some standing. So I cannot see that fight being easily made. That is just my opinion.
Yeah, no, we've seen the way Flanagan and Crolla seem to be. That's just one example of how the promotional difficulties can sort of hinder negotiations. So I'd agree with you.
Yeah, and who else is on the card? We've got Gamal Yafai versus Barnes' Josh Whale.
Josh Whale.
Josh Whale. Be nice to Josh Whale. He's my fellow Barnsley man. I'm just saying, but it's a good test for Gamal Yafai because Josh Whale, from first-hand experience, I know is a good fighter. Is definitely a super bantamweight. His previous fights at featherweight and bantamweight were simply a weight too low or a weight too high. Super bantamweight is definitely his weight. And when Josh Whale turned pro, there was a lot of hype around him in South Yorkshire for being possibly a European champion, at least, or British. There was a lot of there was a lot of hype about him. He's been trained by his dad for years, but his dad's had some long-term health issues for the last couple of months to a year. I know that he's a very good family friend, Josh Whale, as well, to myself and my family. So from a personal point of view, I'm very glad that Josh Whale is back on Sky, and I think this fight, again, a very good fight. You've got two fighters who'd like to come forward. We're not going to run around from each other, try and box each other. They're going to meet head on in the centre of the ring and have it out in a way. And does Josh Whale have the power to knock out Gamal Yafai possibly, or hurt him? Most definitely. His record speaks for itself. He's hurt people by either knocking them down or scoring knockout victories or stoppages. And Gamal Yafai, a lot of hype around him when he first turned pro. A lot of people thought when he got into his pro career, about 3-4 fights in, that is he really all that? But he's proven doubt is wrong. Won the Commonwealth belt against Bobby Jenkinson, and again, this is one of those fights which I love. A very good domestic level fight so far. Me personally, I cannot pick a winner.
If I'm honest, listen, Josh Wales, a mate, it's hard. He's a local boy to you.
Yeah.
So I always find boxing, in more sports than any other, you can always let your heart rule your head a little bit.
Yes, I know. I agree, and I know, and I know exactly what you're going to say. But
if I'm honest, and I look at Josh Whale, solid guy. You're never ever going to get an easy fight with him. Mm-hmm. However, when was the last time he beat anyone of any significance? He's been in there with the likes of Jazza Dickens. He's been in there with Gavin McDonnell, I believe, and Stuart Hall. I'm missing one. Kid Galahad, he was also in with, and he lost. One
thing which I will say: the Stuart Hall fight, he was given 8 days' notice. Kid Galahad, even less notice.
Yeah, so he's a gamer, and that sort of in his fighting style, I suppose shows that, because he's a brave guy. He's never in for an easy night's work. And being a professional boxer, if you're not getting the big hype around you, like the Yafais and people like that, you have to fight when you can. And it's not always ideal, and it's not always going to be on a full camp. But that's another story. The truth of it is,
Yeah.
he's a good fighter. I believe Gamal
Mhm.
Yafai is better.
Okay, then. Fair enough. Thank you for crushing my dreams. For
Sorry,
for
Ben.
for for Barnsley to have a fighter win a domestic level title since Chris Saunders. So thank you. So
I
who
might be
else is
wrong.
fight?
I might be wrong. We'd never know.
I hope you're wrong. But anyway, who else is on the card? We've got Sam
Dillian.
Eggington,
Oh, yeah.
Dillian, Frankie Gavin, potentially of Jake Ball, Felix Cash. So none of those fights have got any opponents, I believe.
No opponents, as far as I'm aware, announced for any of those
But
guys.
but I think we should be both in agreement that the main highlight of yesterday's press announcement was Dillian White wanting to start fights with Steffi Bull, calling out Dave Allen to get him on 3 weeks' notice to fight on this bill. So Dillian White, he really is the entertainer, isn't he? In my opinion, he
He
really
is.
is the entertainer.
I've interviewed Dillian a few times, and I don't have a bad word to say about him. If I'm honest, he's a good guy. He's a genuine guy, and more than that, he's a fighter. Not so much he's trying to work on that side of the game to make him more of a boxer, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fighter, and he wants to be involved in big fights. Now, I think the Dave Allen thing, I understand Dave Allen's point of view. Listen, I've spoken to them both on Twitter. They both follow me on Twitter. I speak to both of them on an odd occasion. I like both guys. I think the problem, Dave Allen, it is sort of 4 weeks notice, 3 or 4 weeks notice, but he's been calling Dillian out for a month or so now.
Yeah.
So, he's been training, and if I don't like to say he doesn't want the fight. I believe he wants that fight, don't get me wrong. But obviously he wants everything to be set up. He wants to have a full training camp. But as we were just saying with regards to Josh Well, things aren't always ideal. Now, people have taken fights on a lot less notice and shocked their opponent.
Yep.
I would like to have seen Dave Allen take the fight. That's probably a selfish point of view because I really want to see the fight. But, what kind of shape is he in? He's been training he changed his training camp and he's been training a lot, and the fight's still 3 or 4 weeks away. So I'd like to have seen it. I believe he'd have had the time.
I think from my personal point of view, because Dave Allen's recently gone back to the Ingle gym where he had his amateur career, maybe it's just getting back into the groove of working back with Dominic Ingle and working on the things which need to be worked on. So I can understand that point of view, but then again, this fight's been talked around for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it's definitely been going on.
Yeah, so it's not that unrealistic to make the fight, especially with Dave Allen training much more regularly, not blowing up in weight as such. He's on a strict regime. So I could see it being realistically possible. I could see it being made, but as I spoke to Dave Allen on a interview basis, he's saying that he's fighting definitely on the Kell Brook undercard for the supposed September 5th bill. That is still yet to be confirmed. So I think he has his eyes set on that before he commits to any other future fights, which is a shame because, like as you said, it's a good fight which should be made.
Yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, again, it has to make sense for him. If he doesn't feel he's ready, then he shouldn't take the fight. I agree with him.
Yeah.
So it's just a shame that it's not, it wasn't confirmed a while back. Obviously, Dillian only fought last week on the Anthony Joshua bill, so it wasn't really realistic booking a fight between the two of them. And the British Boxing Board have had their say on it. They don't believe Dave Allen's ready for Dillian White, so it wouldn't be for the British title anyway. So is it worth taking the fight not for nothing, pride and money at the end of the day? But I can understand why he'd prefer to wait. I can.
Yeah, okay. And so I think we've taught the Leeds press event to death. So, so have you been paying attention to the Olympic qualifiers in Vargas, Venezuela?
Little bits and bobs, to be honest with you. There's a few guys that have stood out to me for a little while. There's a couple that have stood out to me for a few years, as in the super heavyweight Joe Joyce.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Joyce has been for a long time, and also Jack Bateson. I believe he's a flyweight.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, and a fellow Yorkshireman as well.
Yeah, I like Jack Bateson. I've sort of paid attention to him for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I've known about Joe Joyce for a little while, a good few years
Mm-hmm.
also. You've got a good couple of fighters as well. Andrew Selby, he qualified, I believe.
And Andrew Selby is professional now.
Has he turned professional? Is he?
Is British champion at flyweight.
Really?
Yes, and Andrew Selby he recently signed a promotional agreement with Cyclone.
Well, there you go. It shows what I know about the Olympic boys, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I was strictly talking about the qualifying event which is going off this week. I'm guessing you haven't paid too much attention to it.
Not too much, mate. No.
No.
The only sort of attention I paid was when they were talking about throwing the professionals.
Yeah.
You know, that was a big bugbear of mine. Not something I was particularly keen on.
The only reason why I'm bringing it up is because those professionals are fighting in Venezuela right now, trying to qualify, and the biggest names pro-wise which are involved in that is Hassan Endam, who lost to David Lemieux when David Lemieux captured his IBF world title at middleweight before he lost to Golovkin.
Yeah.
And Amnat Ruanrong, the recently dethroned IBF flyweight champion. But if you want to know, Ruanrong won his fight yesterday, and Hassan Emdan is fighting, I believe, at 2-3 o'clock tomorrow morning UK time. So I just thought I may as well ask. But this Monday coming up, we have the return of Sergey Kovalev versus Isaac Shalemba.
Yeah.
As me and you were saying on Twitter, I think it was yesterday. A strange time to have it on a Monday. Very strange time, but are you in thinking of me, same as me, it should be a routine defence?
Yeah, I mean, Isaac Chilemba is probably most famous for drawing with Tony Bellew. You know, that if we're honest, that's probably what he's best known for. Sergey Kovalev, we know what he can do, and we know what he did to Cleverly, and you know, we know he's got bigger fish to fry. He's got the Andre Ward, I believe it's booked in now for November, which is slightly strange, seeing as he hasn't defended the titles. You know, it should be a routine defence, but stranger things have happened. You know, Isaac Chilemba's got nothing to lose if he comes in and believes he can do it, and Kovalev takes his eye off of Chilemba and is strictly looking at Andre Ward. Stranger things have happened. You know, personally, Kovalev's too strong for me. He's too powerful. There's a reason he's called the Crusher. He does that to his opponents. You know, when he fought Cleverly, I believe it was for Cleverly's world title.
Yeah.
And he went to Wales, and he bashed him up. You know, it wasn't like a fluke. It wasn't like a flash knock. The sheer power that the man possesses.
It was a proper demolition job on Nathan Cleverly. That
was a world champion. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
So, you know, Kovalev he's beaten Pascal twice, I think. Since then, he outpointed Hopkins. So he possesses power in both hands, but he also is a very clever boxer. And I just don't think Isaac Chilemba is anywhere near his level.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that Chilemba is more well known for fighting the likes of Edison Miranda when Edison Miranda was still knocking about. Again, at a 2 weight divisions above from his natural weight, drawing with Tony Bellew. Lee recently lost to Alvarez, I want to say Colombian light heavyweight Alvarez. That was on the undercard of the Gale Butte. So
yeah,
it's a tough fight for anyone, but not in terms for just simply being awkward. It's very tricky to land clean on. It's not gonna. I don't want to be dismissive of Shalem because, like as he said, stranger things have happened. But again, it is that situation of there's levels and then there is levels, isn't it? So I think me personally, I think it could be a very easy night's work for Kovalev. I'm picking Kovalev inside 4.
Yep, I'd agree with you, mate. Kovalev inside 4. Yeah, he'll catch him. And when he does, Chilembo, I don't think we'll be able to withstand the barrage that Kovalev will throw at him.
Agreed. And my final talking point, which I want to talk about, it's a bit of a big topic, which is doing the rounds at the minute. But like the reason why I brought it up last, I don't want to pay too much attention to it because it's just simply a farce. The return of Erkan Tepe. Do you know the fighter who was recently got banned by
David Price
got knocked out by? Yeah. He's made his return because it's simply, from like what I've researched and reported on myself on HitHardNews.com, it's basically the BDB have issued him a fine of €130,000, and if he paid that fine, he got his license back, basically, which is an absolute farce. And the current ban, which is, well, the situation is that there's 2 bans. There's one by the German Boxing Board, which was for 12 months, and then there's the European Boxing Union ban, which lasts for 2 years. He's basically bought his German license back and he's allowed to fight because it's all seemingly forgotten now. And I just thought I'd get a brief thought about it.
My thoughts are it's wrong. I struggle to understand what's going on. You've got Lucas Brown. Lucas Brown lost his title because of a drug test failure, or Wilder was supposed to fight Povetkin. The fight didn't happen because apparently Povetkin's A sample tested positive, but then apparently the B sample came back and was negative. Then you've got Tepe fails a test and is allowed to pay a fine and get straight back in there. It's becoming a farce. It's one that needs clearing up, but then who clears it up? The problem with boxing is there are so many different organizations and councils and federations and people that have a say. I mean, I don't know where you go. I don't know where. There has to be a blanket ban or a blanket suspension or something. There has to be something put in place by the powers that be so that things like this can't happen. David Price was knocked out by him and knocked out by Tony Thompson, and they both failed drugs tests afterwards. Whether or not that was relevant, it remains to be seen, because personally I'm not convinced that the opponent failing a drugs test that could be for any drug that usually helps with stamina late on is going to put any effect on a shot to your chin. Whether that's relevant or not is another thing, but you can't have the situation we have right now where people can be failing drugs tests. And Tepe's last fight, it was the weekend he beat was it Rossi, wasn't it?
Derek Rossi, yeah.
And it was last year he knocked that, so it's less than a year between contests and failing a drugs test. Has he lost his ranking? Has anything like that? Who knows?
I believe he's lost his ranking with IBF for definite. But again, someone else could easily rank him. It's one of those situations, isn't it? Where, like, he's lost one ranking, but he can just think personally, I just win a couple of fights against fighters of decent-ish name and caliber. I'll be back up there in people's top 20, top 15 rankings, no problem. It's one of those kind of things.
And no one knows how long he's been taking whatever he failed for. So if he gets less than a year ban, and then is back in there and doesn't lose any of his endorsements or his rankings, it might have been worth him doing it if he's been doing it his whole career. Do you know what I mean? And this is where the grey area is. You know, you got someone like Felix Sturm, who I believe he's still WBA super champion, unless they've stripped him since.
There is talk of him being stripped, and the potential fight for that belt is Fedor Chudinov.
Yeah.
And George Groves.
Yeah. Now, do you know what I don't get? I don't get why there's talk of him being stripped. I don't get why it wasn't done instantly. It happens. Lucas Brown.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, agreed. And they soon reinstated Shagayev back into that position.
Yeah.
As well, I believe. So, yeah, I don't want to go into it too much because we could be here all night and we've both got things to do. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you very much, Sam, for taking part. And thank you to the listeners at home for listening. And you can listen to this podcast within 48 hours on hithardnews.com. Thank you very much and good night.